it's a very simplistic form of communication. The human body as well. This is how we learned how to count, is using the digits of our hands, of our fingers, of our bodies. So our body was the measuring tool. It was the counting tool, and it's how we started to learn the different angles or angels of light. And this is where the whole concept of angel numbers come in, because very specific numbers have very specific connection.
Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Well, welcome everyone to Higher Journeys. I am your host, Alexis Brooks. And of course, if it's your first time here, I welcome you. I also welcome back for the third, fourth, fifth, maybe the 11th time. Little hint to what we're going to be talking about. Jason Quitt. Guys, we're going to talk about, we'll call it angel numbers again. If you have been tuning into Higher Journeys, you will no doubt know that we had a stellar show with Billy Carson just about a couple of months ago, where we really delved into, from his perspective, what the meaning is of the numbers that you are seeing repeatedly. Could be repeating number patterns. It could be just a particular sequence of numbers, but they are bombarding us. Why is that? That's what we're going to get into right now on Higher Journeys. Jason, thank you for coming. And I know you've got a lot to say because we've been chatting it up offline, and you had some really explosive, revelational things to talk about having to do with the numbers. Let's dig in. Here's probably the biggest question right off the bat. People have been seeing numbers, patterns, favorite number, I don't know, a repeating number for years, probably since the beginning of time. But there is no doubt in my mind that there has been a marked increase in the number of people being hit over the head with certain number patterns. Jason, why now? When I say now, in the last decade or so, but it's increasing. What's going on?
Well, I really believe that our minds are programmed to see patterns in nature, patterns in cycles, and it's part of our survival mechanisms. It's also inner wisdom, inner knowledge that is being shown to us, like the subconscious mind speaking to our conscious mind. And I remember, even 20 years ago, when this whole numbers thing was getting very popular. And, it could go back even further than that, obviously. But for me, it was about 20 years ago. And the words that were associated with it was synchronicity. As in, if you saw, let's say 11:11 on the clock, and you saw it once and then twice and then three times, it's a synchronicity. It's the universe trying to talk to you, trying to show you that you're going down the right path. A lot of people would see, let's say 9/11. And some people would say, okay, like, why am I seeing this number? Is it like a wake up call? Is there an emergency? Is there something that I need to focus more attention on in my life? So it becomes this kind of pattern recognition, kind of telling us or pulling our attention in a way that focuses us on something that we need to look more deeply into our lives. So I remember, even for me, I was born on the 22nd of February. So it was like second month and 22nd day. So my numbers have always been 22. And, when you're going through the awakening or getting into spiritual concepts, you look up the number 22 and you realize, okay, this is a master number. This is important. And by seeing 22 on the clock or even on addresses, it's somehow for me, it's like a signal or a guidepost saying I'm going down the right direction if I see the numbers 22. And this could be obviously different for every single person, depending on, what number they feel is calling them. So the numbers do take on this kind of magical formula in someone's life that helps guide them down a very specific purpose or trail.
That's interesting. 22. Yes, it is a master number. I think that there's a subjective quality to numbers in terms of the relationship with the people that are seeing them. but there may be an archetypal quality as well, a universal. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but I'd like to explore that with you as well. Jung obviously felt that the dream archetypes, as an example, were a part of the seat of the collective unconscious, and so there could be sort of a archetypal meaning that would apply to some extent across the board for all people that are dreaming. Let's say that their teeth are falling out, or they're naked running down the street and everyone's watching. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? The archetypal qualities that may be associated with numbers, if at all.
Well, I would say that numbers are the oldest form of communication, of language. In fact, the languages, even most ancient languages, even Hebrew languages, is based off of numbers. So let's say like Aleph is 1, Beit is 2, and they mean certain things. So, the Aleph is the ox or the bull, and Beit is house. So that you have these numbers that relate to not only letters, but iconography, mythologies, and things are based off of numbers. Like even the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. Tav is the 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And what's very interesting is Tav also means head. And it's also the last letter. It's made from a rosh, which is means also head, and a vav, which is the nail. And another interesting thing is the human skull itself has 22 bones in it. So it is the house of the language of light. The 22 is the skull. I think they used to call it Golgotha, which is the place of the skull, which was the end of the completion of life, which is the cross. That's why Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, which is the skull, the place of the skull. So all these numbers have very hidden ancient significance and archetypal patterns that are woven into our subconscious that we don't even realize or know about. But each number itself represents a frequency, an angle of light, or you would call it an angel of light. Each number represents. So it's deeply rooted in our subconscious and archetypes, and it's deeply rooted in the way that we see the world, and everything beyond language itself has to do with numbers. And this is why they say mathematics is so important, because it's a true language. Because, if you have one object, it's 1, and then you add another, it's 2. It's a very simplistic form of communication. The human body as well. This is how we learned how to count, is using the digits of our hands, of our fingers, of our bodies. So our body was the measuring tool. It was the counting tool. And it's how we started to learn the different angles or angels of light. And this is where the whole concept of angel numbers come in, because very specific numbers have very specific connection to our understanding of who we are and where we are in the world. And it helps us bring us closer to this divinity or source, because we can see the design, the architecture of creation by going into the numbers of things.
We are living at a time of great challenge and incredible opportunity. A time when taking life into our own hands, charting our own course, and finding our own answers is more accessible than ever before. During this time, you may be asking yourself, what am I called to do? What if I could discover not only my own inner healing power, but help others all over this planet discover theirs? We all have the ability to heal ourselves, but it takes a special approach, a unique approach. Quantum healing hypnosis technique, also known as QHHT, a method developed by pioneering hypnotherapist and past life regression expert Dolores Cannon, is the approach that thousands have used and taught to access the deeper aspect of the self for healing at the core level. We all have the ability to tap into the higher self, the oversoul, the higher consciousness, and we have the means to help others to do the same. QHHT is designed to help the individual access the subconscious, the storehouse of all information, through visualization at the deepest level imaginable, a process that Dolores Cannon discovered and refined during her decades of working with individuals from around the globe. Training with QHHT will provide the guidance and give you the tools to help others tap that incredible force within. Now, you can access this exclusive training online, bringing the tools needed right to you, so you can assist others in finding their own answers and achieve total healing. This is powerful and needed now more than ever. Be a part of the pioneering work and legacy of Dolores Cannon by learning QHHT. Start today by clicking on the link in the description of this show to get started. And when you do, don't forget to mention Higher Journeys to get a 10% course discount when you sign up. It's time we all take back control of our lives and chart the course for success at every level. It's time to discover the power of quantum healing hypnosis technique by helping others to help themselves. And by doing this, we are helping to heal the world. That is a lot. He just packed a lot in there. We're going to be going to the Patreon after show, not now, but I wanted to bring this up at this juncture, Jason, because you're going to be going a bit more into how we can better identify with the numbers by taking the framework of the human body and perhaps drawing more of a nexus, getting more meaning out of why you're seeing certain numbers. So make sure you come on over to the after show. But in addition to that, serendipitously, we're talking about angel numbers and we're talking about angles. And someone else who was on the show a couple months ago, same thing. Let's play this clip from Billy Carson and see what you think about this. And we can get a little bit more into the angel numbers concept. Let's take a look at this.
People have called them angel numbers. So if I start calling them something else, they won't know what I'm talking about. And so sometimes you reach people where they are. So when they see angel numbers, they go, oh, he's getting ready to talk about the numbers, And so in my personal opinion, it's angels are really angles of light. We know that there are higher dimensions that exist in 90-degree angles above one another. And there are multiple dimensions going all the way up. We know this universe consists of a minimum of at least 11 dimensions. And all those are in angles or angels of one another, according to quantum physics.
There you have it. This wasn't Billy's concept, apparently. I didn't think it was. I mean, he's a great researcher, as are you, Jason. This is amazing to me. This is a term that I had never, or a definition that I had never heard framed quite this way before. And I think the majority of the people still that look at this term or take in this term angel numbers, all due respect, it's a little too simplistic. The inference of 1111 make a wish, the angels are around, and that could be true, but this is more of a quantum physics. It has a quantum physics overtone to it in terms of how this all works. We talked about angles of the sun. Get into that a little bit, if you will.
Well, I'll try to make it a little simpler and bring it down to earth. When you even just think of 11, the number's 11, what is the number 1? It's the channel, it's the straight line going through. When you have the two angles or the 90 degrees angles coming straight down, they call that the gateway. So it's like a passage of energy, a bridge between the higher conscious and lower conscious worlds, or upper world and lower world. So when someone sees 1111, they say, okay, this is an angel number. It means that it's the gateway is opened. You have the two straight lines to allow the passage of energy through. So this is more of an stoic, esoteric definition. And again, there's so many different understandings of this. There's no one right answer because it is really subjective to the person. But when you just, strictly look at this. Now, angles of light, if you go, let's say, far back into time, it has to do with the rising and setting sun. And there's 3 times of the sun. It is in the rising, it's straight above your head at noon, and it's the setting sun. So you have these 3 main points, or the trinity of the sun. And the angles of light, like think of the rays of the sun coming up during the dawn, coming into bringing the light into the world. And then the sun overhead, it's the angles of light are cast right down because you don't cast any shadows. It's the most high sun, therefore there's no shadows on the world. It's defeating the darkness, right? So as the sun makes its way across the sky, depending on the hour of day, which equals 15 degrees in the sky, equals 1 hour, it passes through the constellations of the stars.
Mhm.
And depending on the angle in the sky, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever that angle is in the sky, it will cast a different angle of light, casting a different shadow on the ground. So as people were studying this, they were very interested in the influences. What is the sun's influence being at this angle of light? What is the sun's influence when in the background it's passing this constellation? And this is the ideas and thoughts that are the beginnings of astrology, horoscopes, trying to figure out, what everything means. Everything has a correspondence and influence within our lives depending on the angles of the sun. So the ancient people would calculate this. They would put up obelisks, they would put up standing stones, they would build monuments to the sun, also to the moon, and also to the stars, depending on the angles at different times of the year are markers in time, and they would affect the consciousness of the people. They would have to change their lifestyles. For example, um, going into the harvest, planting seeds, stockpiling food to survive the year. And then also the moon, which is fertility, and also regulation of chemistry and hormones has to do with the moon. So what these ancient people were doing was they were trying to mark and create a calculation to study the angles and influences of the sun and the moon with the backdrop of the stars and their position, to figure out what changes or what influences our consciousness in our world. And I believe this is the basic foundation of what we're talking about today and how it's brought to this.
Absolutely. This leads me back to the first question, which I don't know we fully got an answer from you on, in terms of why there is a market increase at this point in our time of the year of our Lord 2023, more people seeing these numbers. So I'm going to jump in and see if you can help me with this. Could this have something to do with the fact that there is so much solar activity, geomagnetic activity, the magnetosphere thinning, if you will, as it is alleged to be doing? You're making a correlation between the geophysics of our planet and these numbers. And the geophysics of this planet are indeed altering or perhaps mutating us to be more aware? Question mark. Let's bring this full circle, or let's bring this, to a head. Why now? Why are people seeing these numbers so much more now? Because that's a fact. That's going on.
I think that there is more general awareness now. I think thanks to social media and everybody connecting. I hear also there's a huge spiritual awareness movement on TikTok, it seems. I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know, but I've heard. But there is, I know that star seeds are huge on TikTok right now. There's like 2 billion impressions just on star seeds. So there's got to be a huge impression on angel numbers as well. And people are getting into this. I also feel like there's this big pendulum swing. And when the world starts to go into disorder, chaos, or there's something not right in the physical world, there is this great uptick in trying, or the universe or subconscious trying to pull the individual's attention inward, trying to get the individual to focus on something else other than what's happening in the world, to try to bring them more into a spiritual understanding of where they are in relation to the time they're living.
Okay, you gave several reasons there, and I suppose they're all related. I think that what's probably most profound out of all of those is the universe, look, I just feel like there's a metaphysical backdrop to why this is happening in excess right now. And I do agree, social media has an influence on the reality that we experience collectively, even if we're not participating. Because again, all of this is somehow being embedded within the collective, I suppose. And so let's say they're talking about numbers all the time, 1111 on TikTok, and you have somebody over here that has never been on TikTok but starts seeing 1111. There could be a, what do you call it, a sort of a butterfly effect.
Yeah. And remember, it's like when I started to get into this spiritual conscious mindedness, let's say, started to go down that path, one of the first things that started to happen was the noticing of numbers. Was the synchronicities of, what is this 22 or what is this 11? And I feel that for many people, it sticks and it lasts a very long time. For others, it's just more of a recognition that the universe is speaking to them to help them further along that path.
Mhm.
And I think there is a very large segment of the population right now, over the last 10 years, that are coming into it. So we're talking about, in their early 20s, people that are on social media. This group of individuals that are coming into spiritual understanding, the first thing that they're going to kind of connect with is this kind of synchronicity of numbers, which helps them kind of focus their intention on where they're going to move next. So I think it's having this renaissance
Mm.
right now because of there's a new generation getting into this, and it's fanning the flames for us to even come back and discuss this topic.
That is amazing. If that's what's going on, that would give me great encouragement. That feels right. I mean, look, numbers are, again, forgive the cliche, a language. We know that. Pythagoras, I think one of the YouTubers that watched my show with Billy, I had made reference to Pythagoras being the father of, not the father of numbers per se, but of mathematics. And somebody scolded me. No, he's not. But nonetheless, we know that Pythagoras and his love for and distillation of the meaning of numbers is well known. We're getting back to the language, it would seem. And I think I posed this maybe to someone else recently, Mary Rodwell, that's who it was. Even though, I mean, look, you've got people out there that are, I'm sure have probably emailed you. I know have emailed and commented to me, Alexis, I'm seeing, 97, or it could be any number. What does that mean? What does this mean? What's 44 mean? And I don't know that we're ever going to get a definitive answer in the way that we're used to getting it. However, somehow the subconscious is also receiving these signals, and the subconscious can distill perhaps what these numbers are meant to do and are even acting on it in that level. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And I'll just tell you a brief story because it's very interesting to me. Is that 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, I had a client, and it was a very stressful client. There was a lot of work involved with this client, and they would call me like 5, 10 times a day. So every time they would call, I'd see their number coming up on my call display, and my heart would pound. And the last three numbers would on their phone number I would know exactly who's calling, right? And after I stopped working with this client, I would pick up my phone and it would be those three numbers on my phone. I would look at the clock and it would be those three numbers on the clock. And these three numbers would haunt me for years. Still I pick up the phone and go, oh, it's those very, it's a random number. But I would continually see this random number over and over again. And it's because I had this kind of subconscious stress that was associated with this number. So it can go both ways, is what I'm trying to say, is that my mind was hyper tuned to seeing that this number related to something very specific. And it caused me stress. So maybe was it my subconscious saying that I have stress in my life right now, and this is a reminder to take a breath?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is the universe trying to say? But then again, is this number patterned as an important number in my subconscious, and therefore um, my higher conscious knows when this time is on my phone, and it triggers me to look at it. So
Yeah.
or do you just reckon? Here's the thing, and this is what you learn in advertising and marketing school, is that the average person sees, let's say, like could potentially be exposed to thousands of advertisings or advertisements per day. All right. But the mind cancels it out. All right. So they say, well, how do you make your advertisement speak to that person if they're drowning out, their subconscious is drowning out everything because they're overwhelmed by it? So what they do is they put like secret subconscious things in advertisement, like death or sex or something to do with food, something that gets to our subconscious right away and pulls our attention to it. And I'm thinking that once we've kind of associated a number like I had to stress, for example, then I was predispositioned that whenever I was in a stressful situation, or maybe there was something stressful going to come into my life, my subconscious would make me see those numbers. Out of all the numbers to see during the day, it'll pull my attention specifically for those numbers. And it works in the opposite way with the 1111. It's or whatever your number is, it will pull you to show you good things, or you're on the right path, or sit and meditate, or tune into those numbers and just go within, so that you can be in that present moment. And maybe that's all it really is it's a reminder. You've noticed the time, you've noticed the numbers. This is the present moment. Be here right now.
Could be that simplistic, for sure. It could mean all of those things, frankly. I tend to, I love to say it's not this or that, but this and that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I love the reference you made, Jason, to what the subconscious does, and our brain, of course, in training ourselves to, I've asked the question, when I'm looking at the clock and see, as an example, 55 for many years, still 32 is another one. That was my address when I lived in Massachusetts. I won't tell you the street, but yeah. And it would happen so much. I'd have to at least consider the option that I am in training myself to know when to look at the clock, even though I'm not expecting to look at the clock and see 32, but the fact that I happen to see it all the time, am I playing a role in the, I don't know, of doing that all the time? It's just that's, I think, what you were saying, among other things. It's
and we're also conditioning our minds to the fact that if we say this number, like I said, 22 is like my number. I love that number.
I love that number, by the way. I don't see it all the time, but I love it.
So when I see it, it's all, for me, it's always this omen. It's like, this means something more to me. It has more of a value when I see that number. Just like seeing the negative number, it has a value in my life, and it has some type of representation to it. And I think that we do have to take notice to this. But, we can't be led blindly. If we see our favorite number, but the path is obviously not going to be a good path for us, we need to learn to step back and understand maybe this is not right. But I love the fact that more people now are getting into this idea of numbers, because it's the purest form of understanding who we are and where we are in consciousness, in life. And, one of the oldest sayings is, if you want to know something, measure it. Because by its measure, we understand its creation. And it's the same thing, going into like DNA and the patterns, and, what are all these things when they combine in certain numbers and frequency. And you're the combination of it. The physical body, the outcome of all these numbers is you and life and what we see and experience in the world. And that's how we relate to creation, is to find out their numbers and how they operate in the physical world, which is the mirror and reflection of the spiritual.
You're so eloquent in how you explain these complex ideas. Jason, I applaud you for that. I mean that sincerely. This is something that we really need to take note of. It's it's really stunning the how complex these things can be and simplistic at the same time, somewhat paradoxically. But for whatever reason, those numbers are insisting that we engage them on a regular basis for the sake of our individual and collective evolution. For that, I'm sure. Again, we're going to go over to the after show and get a little bit more into this and actually work on a couple of ways that we can more proactively engage these numbers using our own body, which Jason made reference to. But before we do, and by the way, yes, this is a shorter segment. Speaking of numbers, I had referenced your relatively new book, Astral Genesis, which is heavy, you guys. I mean, look, Jason Quitt, he's a heavy guy. Yeah, I'll put up a screenshot as well. It's a beautiful cover. And Jason, what book is this in your portfolio? How many have you written at this point?
Well, I've written books in the past that no longer are in print, but right now we have the Egyptian Postures of Power, which is online, which is this. And then as I was writing the second level to this book, I came across some information that led me down a very specific road that I had to extract and stop the Egyptian Postures book and then work on this one. So right now there's only 2 books available, the Egyptian Postures of Power and Astral Genesis. And I will be releasing the second level to the Egyptian Postures of Power, hopefully this year. But Astral Genesis just kind of threw me in a loop, and I had to kind of focus on that because
so you were
I
called
felt
to do it at this time.
I felt the information was way too important that I had to kind of get it out ASAP.
Give us a thumbnail as to what this is all about and how the layperson can utilize it. Because knowing you as I do, this was a calling not just for Jason, but for all those that will and have read it in this on this path to evolution. Tell us about it.
The book is about the oldest story ever told, which is the movement of the sun through the sky, the movement of the stars through the sky, and how ancient humans related themselves and corresponded their life and their understanding of life to the stars and to the sun. And as I'm going through this, and it's not just their life, it's also the path of the afterlife was the sun and the stars and the journey through the Milky Way. So everything had a correspondence between the stars, the sun, the planets, the moon, the earth, and the human being. And this is the oldest story ever told, and it's been reused and recycled into creating the earliest religions, the earliest myths, the earliest artworks and artifacts were created with this type of information in mind. So the book goes to discover an ancient hidden language of the angles of the sun, and how these angles were so important that they created artifacts using this code, created artwork to tell this original story using geometry and the angles of the sun. And it was an allegorical story of our journey through the afterlife and our journey through life. So, yeah, I know it's a bit heavy. And there's a lot of pictures and graphs in this book. Almost every page is a picture. And, it goes through different artwork and artifacts, and it shows you different angles and dimensions and ratios that are all based on the correspondence between the man or the person and the cosmos.
That's heavy and necessary, and no accident that I felt this pull to have this conversation with you about numbers. This is directly related. And I dare say this book, you guys, could very well be a manual within the context of how Jason approached the numbers today. Take your time with this. Go grab this book. By the way, I want a hard copy, dude. You sent me the PDF. I want a hard copy or
You
the
got
ebook.
it.
I'm sorry.
You got
The
it. You got it.
yeah. This is great. Oh, your gift to the world. And I'm not just brown nosing, it's the truth. You are so much to
Thank you.
share, and it's appreciated. Um, it's something that we has been in short supply, and we're just glad you're here and doing this great work and helping us understand the numbers, the angel numbers, the angles a bit more, and ourselves. It's about self-discovery, man. I really think so. So, where can people find your work? Let's go to the website and talk about
Yes.
that.
My personal website is called thecrystalsun.com, and that will have crystals and books on it. That's my personal site. I just got a new Facebook, but I haven't really started using it after it got nuked. But
I
so
understand.
I don't really have Facebook. I don't have Instagram anymore. And the only place you could find me socially is on Twitter, Jason_Quitt. But I do most of my appearances on great shows like this.
Well, I'm honored that you're a part of our cast of beautiful guests. So thank you. And by the way, guys, this might be a good time to bring this up. Any of you journeyers trying to get me over on Facebook, my Higher Journeys Facebook page, we're having a little bit of an issue. No, we're having a big issue. And as a matter of fact, I am unable to get on and log on and participate. So we won't get into the weeds, but look out for a new Facebook page soon. Honestly, keeping up with the social media stuff. Love you guys, love you all, but this is really a bit much. Yeah. So I understand, Jason. There's a lot of that going on. So
Oh
we can,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know why it's a conspiracy, but they took me off social
Oh,
media pretty quickly,
for
and I
goodness.
never really posted anything so bad. So
We can still find you. You know where to find him. You can find him here. You can find him at the Crystal Sun, and more to come. Can we talk about the big CITD in June?
oh, of course. I'm
Contact in the desert.
Contact in the Desert. I'm really looking forward to this because I think it's the first time I'll leave my house in 3 years.
Oh my God. Can you believe it?
Yeah, so I get to see everybody, my friends. I get to share this information, do a presentation, and it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. It's always a party
I
at
love
Contact in the
remember?
Desert.
Oh my God. We haven't sealed the deal yet, but I have a suspicion that I'll be there as well. We just actually got back from Alien Con in Los Angeles. I spoke there. So it's always fun
Nice.
to gather with folks. And yeah, I miss that. I know you all have too. So I'm going to give it a little plug. CITD, Contact in the Desert. What's the date? Jason, is it June?
It's the first weekend of June.
First weekend in June. Okay.
Yes.
We'll be talking about it more. I have a feeling. So great. We can see you there. Go grab the book. I know I'm going to be reading it. It's on my summer reading list, most likely, because it's going to be one you don't just whiz through it. You study it. Am I right? You study it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I'm surprised. But people are really taking an interest in it.
Yeah.
And
I
they're
would say
really,
Amazon's doing good.
yeah, and they're really going through it. And I've been a little quiet with it because if what I put in here is true, which obviously I believe I proved is true, is that there is a hidden language within the ancient architecture and artwork and artifacts
Mhm.
that you could only see if you know the angles and the oldest story. It's right in the artifacts and the paintings.
I love it. This is important. I think we deserve to know, but we've got to put the work in. So this will be a good way to start that process. Jason Quitt, thank you, my friend,
Thank you.
as always, for joining us for another vibrant conversation and one that will help us look a bit deeper into self and us collectively. There's a lot to discover and it's good stuff. So, all right, guys, we're going to go over to Patreon and continue this conversation. He's going to give us a little cheat sheet maybe on how we can really delve into these numbers from this perspective. So for now, I thank you for watching Higher Journeys. Thanks again, Jason.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. Take care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to watch what's next, plus more to explore. And don't forget to subscribe to Higher Journeys.